statement say?
Yes, the statement is on the 10% tariff imposition by the United States, and FAGE views with serious concern the recent imposition of a 10% tariff by the United States administration. As the collective voice of Ghana's export community, FAGE believes this development could have far-reaching consequences for our economy and requires immediate attention from all stakeholders. And they go on to write that Ghana's economic prosperity has long been intertwined with international trade, with the United States serving as a significant trading partner. For years, the African Growth and Opportunity Act has provided Ghana with duty-free access to the US market, facilitating the growth of our non-traditional exports, fostering industrialization, and supporting thousands of jobs across multiple sectors of our economy. The current tariff actions, coupled with AGOA's pending expiration in September 2025, present substantial challenges to our export community. And these exports represent not merely statistics, but the livelihoods of countless Ghanaian workers and their families. Should these new tariffs be extended to goods currently protected under AGOA, or should AGOA itself expire without renewal, our exports will face diminished competitiveness in the US market. Industries such as agric, textiles, apparel, and footwear, which have flourished under AGOA, are already bracing for potential declines in orders, reduced production capacity, and workforce reductions. Moreover, these tariffs may increase the cost of vital US imports such as industrial machinery, equipment, petroleum products, and raw materials, thereby inflating production costs for Ghanaian businesses and undermining our global competitiveness. As FAGE, we recognize that these challenges demand a robust and coordinated response. We call on the government of Ghana to intensify diplomatic engagement with the US to secure exemptions for Ghanaian exports and advocate forcefully for AGOA's renewal. You know, there are about 6,700 commodities under AGOA.
Yeah.
Number two, FAGE urges accelerated implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to enhance intra-African trade and reduce our vulnerability to external market disruptions. Number three, FAGE commits to working with our members to diversify both our product offerings and export destinations to mitigate risks associated with over-reliance on specific markets. And four, FAGE proposes the establishment of a joint task force comprising government, industry, and trade experts to develop a comprehensive strategy for navigating this evolving trade landscape.
Great, and I'm sure we can now get onto the phone lines and speak to Davies Korboe, who is the president of FAGE. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
So, I mean, going through your statement, you've talked about generally what the impact is likely to be. But for those who are listening to us and asking themselves the question, when it comes to the Ghanaian exporter, how is his or her business going to be affected? Let's get into the practicality of this tariff.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me, and let me say good morning to your Tariffs listeners. Yeah, basically, like you already read, we've been exporting under AGOA for some time now, where we enjoy free tariff. So, asking us to do 10% at this moment is going to cause a lot of havoc. I think since the news broke up last week, I've had countless calls and engagement with most of our exporters who are virtually at a loss, because the issue here is our production cost already is very high and doesn't really make us competitive. And aside that, we are still pushing to make sure that we create employment and also make sure that we penetrate the market. So it tells you it is a big blow to us, and it is really going to affect the sector.
I know there are about 6,700 different products under AGOA. What are the key ones that are going to be hardest hit with this 10% tariff from the U.S. government?
Yes, so we're looking at textiles, apparel, and agricultural products. So as it stands now, you know, Ghana, we are the leading exporters of yam. And we're doing almost $48 million a year, dollars a year. So apparently it's going to be affected. Textiles, they say we're doing a lot. Apparel. So, and these are the areas that also generate a lot of employment, because in any case, I've always been saying that government can employ everybody, so the private sector needs to take advantage. And the only way to do that, be able to make sure that they are sound, to be able to make sure they do what is expected of them. And this particular one, the agricultural products, for instance, is doing a lot. If you look at their contribution to GDP, it's not easy. And if you also look at the one from textiles and others, so they are really, really affected, and we need to look into it. Because if you look at nuts alone, nuts export to the agro market alone, it is huge. And having seen this, I think that it is very problematic, and that's the more reason why we think that government should re-engage the U.S. government to see how best we come out of this unfortunate situation.
So, at the market, for example, we are following what is happening in China, where Walmart is telling Chinese producers to absorb that 10% tariff so that they can still sell to their consumers at the current prices and not have to increase prices. What are your buyers telling you? Are they also telling you to absorb the cost? If they are telling you to absorb the cost, how are you going to absorb this without having an impact on the farmer? Because we know for yam, for example, we have a lot of smallholder farmers you aggregate from to export to the US. How are you going to manage all these things to prevent that last mile impact on the farmer?
Obviously, that is what is going to happen, because we've not engaged yet. But then I think it's the same thing that's going to happen, that they will throw it back to us for us to absorb that 10%. And that was the reason why I said that we should look at re-engaging, because the issue here is there are smaller holder farmers. What is going to happen in that case is either maybe I buy it less than 10%, which of course their production cost is even higher, so it's not going to inure to their benefit. Or I put 10% on it, which is going to affect my buyer over there, and it's going to create problems. So it's going to reduce the volumes that I'm able to sell. So these are some of the things we are looking for. But let's look at it from this angle. I think that for me, it is about time we look into this very well. Why am I saying this? I have always said that I think what we are not doing is to allow our people to transcend the borders of Ghana, allowing the Western world to dominate our trade scale points is disturbing. Because we have the ACTA and the value people advantage of that. Alternate market is what
Davies, your voice is a bit faint. You're far away from your mouthpiece. Maybe you can just speak into it.
Can you hear me now?
I think it's better now.
Yes. So what I'm saying is, why we are allowing the Western market to dominate our sale points? We need the alternate market. I mean, we have the Chinese market, we have the aftermarket. The aftermarket alone is about 3.4 trillion GDP. So I think that we need to be able to make sure we enforce and harness those opportunities. Else, if we keep doing this and we allow ourselves to be swayed by the Western world, it becomes a big problem. Because for me, it didn't come as a shock, because a president campaigned in the U.S. that he was going to provide jobs to his people. So obviously, they will have to sacrifice something to be able to do that. So if this should be a wake-up call for all of us to see how best we can develop alternate markets. We have, like I said, the aftermarket alone is huge. The only problem that is not allowing us to handle those opportunities are logistics.
Okay. So, I mean, if I get you clearly, you're suggesting that maybe we shouldn't complain too much, but look within intra-African trade, and that should help us.
Exactly.
But in one instance also, you're calling for the need to have a meeting. Do I get the impression that within the short to medium term, we'd have to solve this, and then within the medium to long term, maybe begin to concentrate within Africa?
Exactly what my points. Because as it stands now, we have markets over there already, so we can't just depart those markets. We can't just leave those markets. So we need to engage to make sure that we are able to get some clean share for us to be able to shift. But in the long term, we should be able to develop our aftermarket. Okay. And I think once we do that, it goes well for everybody. And this is what I'm trying to, my emphasis on.
Now, let me understand the aggregators and the farmers concept very well. Because, I mean, when Kojo asked you the question about what has happened in China, they're asking the exporters to take that tariff to bear the cost of it. So in Ghana, for instance, let's look at the market. Say yam, where we are the largest, exporter. For those who produce the margins, who produce the yam, how much do they sell it? What are the margins the aggregators may say put on it? So if you ask that we bear the cost, if the farmer is to bear the cost, how worse off is he going to be? And how is that going to impact him? And if the aggregator were to bear the cost, how is that going to impact him or her?
Okay, so let's answer this question twofold. So, for instance, the farmer who is the producer virtually doesn't really make any big margins. The highest margin they make is just about between 15 to 20%. And this is even so bad. If you look at what they go through the whole year to be able to produce this and getting just between 15 to 20% is nothing to write home about. Now, when you talk about the aggregator who becomes the exporter has some margins of not more than 5-6%. I think you understand me. I mean, if you add everything. So if you are asking the aggregator the producer to also pass on 10% to the producer, then their situation is going to be worse off. It's the same thing. If the aggregator is not going to absorb that 10%, what is going to happen is they are unable to ship again. So these are the scenarios we have currently, which I think that it is not something we need to joke about. And that was more reason why I'm asking that let's try to dialogue. I mean, the embassy is here. I mean, Ministry of Trade, all the duty bearers should be able to engage to see how best we get ourselves out of this kind of situation.
Now, what is FAGE doing now to ensure that you orient your members and our exporters to circumvent some of these challenges to get the right value for us? Are you organizing any capacity building for them? Are you opening up other markets to them? What are you doing for the market?
So two things we are doing here. Since last weekend, we are trying to engage all our constituents to, like you said, make sure we build their capacity and maintenance with them. At the same time, looking for the major thing we are doing now to look for alternate markets, and especially the aftermarket. You understand? Because that is the low-hanging ones. If we don't do that, then what is going to happen is a lot of our members are going to go out of job. They won't be able to ship. The producers will have their things stuck on the farm. So what is going to, because yam is fresh produce. So what's going to happen is you have a glut in the system, and when that happens, you have a lot going waste. So these are some of the things we are trying to do. I mean, as I speak now, I'm going to go to the office now. We are going to have an emergency meeting. Just after that, we also want to engage the Ministry of Trade and see how best we can handle it.
Now, Davies, before we go, the rainy season is just upon us. A lot of farmers have started preparing for the season. What's the outlook for this season? We know last year was very bad because of the rains and challenges with inputs. Does this season look good?
I think the season looks good. If you look at, we're in April and we started experiencing some rainfalls. And I also am aware of government Feed Ghana program, which is going to be launched on the 12th. And so I think that the season is very good. What I would rather advise is for us to put our mechanization centers and other things in place, so that we don't eviscerate what our farmers have been going through in the past years. Because people will need to plow their fields, people will need inputs, how they call it, fertilizer, insecticides, and the like. And little capital, to be able to move them to another level. So this is what we are going. Let's wait till after the 12th and see how it goes.
All right, thank you very much, Davies Korboe, for making time to join us this morning. We're very grateful to you. So, Davies Korboe is the president of the Federation of Associations of Ghanaian Exporters, joining us this morning, making the point that we'd have to look within, even though there are discussions on, how the U.S. could hold on with this, tariff implementation. But the long term would have to look within, and we have to operationalize after, so that we could take advantage of it and export to, countries in Africa, or maybe look to the east, get to China, and do business there.
Or diversify our offering for the world. If America, Canada, those countries are the places we export the most yam to, and there is demand for those things there, and we have challenges. If we are looking to the east or other places, maybe we should do more chilies. We should do products that other countries need, those countries without the tariffs and the trade barriers. So we do some good business there.
In the interim, are we learning sense? Has this example set by Donald Trump in a bid to increase manufacturing in his own country, has it resonated with us? Are we seeing opportunities for us to in any way adopt any of that thinking for ourselves, to boost our own manufacturing by putting some stringent limits on what we import, in actually actively working to change the tastes of Ghanaians, to localize the tastes of Ghanaians? Are we thinking in the same vein? Even the biggest economy, one of the biggest economies in the world, is thinking like that. We can't afford not to.
And I'm looking at U.S. destinations for Ghanaian exports, and it's interesting. New York is number one. Do you know what we export to New York?
Tell me.
Mineral oils, cocoa, vegetables, organic chemicals.
Yeah, cocoa in
one
particular.
Of our major,
yes.
Exports into the United
And
States.
San Francisco, California, we export mineral oils. And then if you go to Philly, cocoa and mineral oils.
Yeah. In fact, the New York cocoa also goes to Philly.
Okay. And then there is LA, mineral oils and wood products. And Savannah, Georgia, apparel. So almost all the apparel goes to Georgia.
The South. Okay.
And Chicago, cocoa. And South Carolina, rubber and articles thereof.
Yeah.
And Baltimore, Maryland, lead and articles thereof. And if you look at the yam, because Davis used yam as an example, in 2023, the top exporters of yam were Ghana, number one.
Wow.
Yes, this is according to the OEC. To the US.
Okay.
No. Generally, Ghana, number
yes.
one. Jamaica, number two. Japan, number three. United States, number four. And China, number five. And the top destinations for yam: number one, United States; number two, Canada; number three, United Kingdom; number four, China; and number five, France.
Interesting.
So when it comes to yam, these are some of the dynamics. And there's also cassava and gari.
Look, I was looking at the data. Cocoa paste, for instance, we exported some $38 million worth of it in 2023 to the US.
Yeah.
And garments and clothing, $36 million. So, I was talking about, then you have, cocoa powder, also some 25 million, soya bean, 23 million, cocoa cake, cocoa butter, cashew nuts, soya bean flour. Then there's yam, you have gari.
You know, when you mention some of the commodities, Charlie, it chook me. When you mention cashew, it chook me.
Cashew farmer.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it here, and I see, say for instance, gari, 1.4 million.
Yes.
In 2023.
Yeah.
I see animal feed. I see vegetables. I see melon seeds. I see yam flour. I see maize or corn flour, dried, smoked or salted fish. The Kobe lovers.
So we have to ask, since America is such a big customer of ours, what does this do to our 24-hour economy? Right, there's one of our biggest customers putting a restriction on their business that they'll do with us. Is this going to be factored into Guzitando's big plan?
That's a good question. And there are a few things we also need to do. We need to be as efficient as possible in our production locally. If it's gari we are producing, we need to build the processes to produce gari competitively. reduce the cost of production, and be able to meet some of these things. If you look at export data between Ghana and the US since 2000, it was only until 2018 that Ghana became a net trader with the US. So we're always importing more from the US and exporting less. Now with crude and other things coming in, we export more to the US and we import less. But that still doesn't take away the problem of this 10% tariff on our commodities going to the States, and how it's going to affect the smallholder farmer.
No, I mean, you're very right. But you see, the other thing also, I mean, even when we talk about the net export, the challenge is that majority of the things that, you know, we export there are things that are not even owned by Ghanaians. When it comes to a lot of the oil, mineral
Crude
oil,
oil.
the crude oil, these are not owned by Ghanaians. Gold is minimal, but that in itself is not something that is largely owned by Ghanaians.
But there's cocoa.
There's cocoa which is owned by us. But these cocoa, a lot of them processed and taken out. It'd be important to find out how many of them are actually, the processing is owned by Ghanaians. I make this point also because while we're having this conversation, and when I asked, Davies the question about the farmer and the aggregator, a lot of the time, one of the things we've done, and people have shared Communal Dumont's favorite, there's only one standard, global standard, without paying attention to what he said. We have always pretended that there's some Ghanaian standard to the production of things. There's nothing like that. If you want to produce to the highest quality and standards, so that wherever it goes, we say, this is of good quality. We wouldn't say, oh, this is of Ghanaian quality. What's that supposed
What is
to be?
Ghanaian quality?
Exactly. My point is that, look, this is the time that we have to think a lot about, because it's a lot about, doing things within the country, for our country, and at best, going to West Africa. One of the things, and we talked about the government statistician not long ago, because we realized our African countries and what they were importing and what we can actually do. So today, when Europe realized that the technology for the manufacturing of vehicles, their current technology was becoming obsolete, they didn't stay there, they brought it to Africa. Angela Merkel led a team of German automobile industry players into Ghana, and we actually were excited. We said, oh, this is an indication that the Ghanaian trade environment, it was only a way of making sure that if that technology won't work in Europe, it will work in Africa.
Bring it to Africa and still keep the trade lines open and the profits flowing.
The point I'm making is that I do not see why, when our president leaves this country, he doesn't go with Ghanaian businesses to other parts of Africa and get deals for Ghanaian businesses. Lead the charge. Angela Merkel was in Ghana. Lead the charge. I think in Africa, Kantanka should be assisted to produce vehicles for other African countries. Where he can supply there, wherever the money goes, we will charge Kantanka's global income. He will pay taxes to the people of Ghana.
The problem with Kantanka, are two problems with Kantanka. The first one is that Kantanka, in all fairness, is an assembly company. It's not a manufacturing company.
So are the other vehicle
all well
companies
and good,
here?
all well and good. But I like the idea of finding an African market for Kantanka. The issue is that the company itself doesn't show faith in its product. So if the company itself is not showing faith in its product, then it's hard for us innocent bystanders to come and sell your product to the world. If you don't believe in it, why would we? Okay, and so they are shooting themselves in the foot in a way that makes it difficult for us to then leverage upon this wonderful, unique product that is here in Ghana. They themselves don't believe in it. So what option do we have?
Kojo, when it comes to the manufacturing space, my conclusion is that every country is largely an assembler, especially for vehicles and big machines. For example, if you look at vehicles, right? For your radiator, the US companies import radiators from Canada, China, Mexico. Gearbox, they import from Canada, China, Germany, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, India. Seat belts, they import from Mexico. Airbags, Mexico. Axles, Canada, China, Germany, Japan. Silencers, Canada, China, Germany, Mexico. Bumpers, Canada, Germany, South Korea, Mexico, Taiwan. Wheels, so almost every component of the car is brought from other countries.
Oh, yeah.
and it's assembled.
And he has
So-
tariffed them all.
So Kantanka is also a manufacturer assembler. Almost all the other companies here are the same. With the review of the Public Procurement Act, I would think that if the state is spending on vehicles, for example, we need to look at an institution whose profits will stay within and whose
Exactly.
activities will create more jobs. So I would go for a Kantanka, right? I would go for a New Plan Ghana Limited, which we've left to rot. I would put my purchasing power behind New Plan, so they will build me more buses. And in this case, some of the buses should even be air conditioned or refrigerated, so that we can use them for agricultural commodities.
Now, Kojo, one of the things you in particular do very well is that you always try and draw attention to local business, right? You try and encourage government, which is the biggest customer, to spend on local businesses. Thank God for you. But just imagine that you mention a business, you recommend a business to government, and then they go there to do, place an order, and they realize that the people there themselves don't believe in their product. Will it be a responsible government that then spends money with them? You see what I'm saying? So there is a certain amount of work that must come from the producer, the manufacturer himself, to actually position himself and his product in a way that we can have faith in it. Kantanka cars are wonderful. But they themselves, the people who run the company don't drive Kantanka cars.
What you are saying?
So what? I mean, why would I then come and spend my money on your company when you don't spend your money on your company?
What you are saying is true. It's perfectly true. So the people running businesses here must be seen to believe in their product.
Absolutely.
And they must also put in place structures for the business to work, right?
Yeah.
But as a state, we also owe it to ourselves that if there's a business here within the precincts of this space called Ghana, which is not doing well, and we can make inputs in realigning them to work to suit the national interest, we must. Look, when some of our friends started making shoes, I won't mention any brand name, at a point they were selling shoes for 600 Ghana cedis, made in Ghana shoes, and people said these were expensive. But the argument I always made was that if a lot of us bought, they'll be producing a lot of shoes and the price would reduce.
Yeah.
Now, consistently, their quality has increased, the pricing has remained stable, and these businesses are employing. So if we want to use public procurement to turn around industries, it's not an overnight function. It can go for like 4 or 5 years. It's even sometimes 10 years. Gradually. How did SpaceX become SpaceX, really? How did Elon Musk become who he is now? How did some of these, look, there are
Dangote,
embassies in
all of
Ghana,
these people, yeah.
in Ghana which drive cars only produced in their home countries.
Yeah. United Kingdom, I will name it.
They
United
don't drive
Kingdom.
any cars.
They only drive Land
They only
Rovers.
drive cars made in their home countries. So my point is that, like Professor Nim did, he made us understand the structure of our economy, what we are consuming, what we are exporting, what we are importing, where we are producing from, the values of all these things. Let's do that critical mapping and do the backward and the forward integrations to ensure that how much did we budget this year in our national budget? How much do we plan to spend?
Close to 300 billion.
So
Ghana
we
cedis.
must ensure that that value in our budget reflects in our economy and changes our fortunes.
I agree with you. Government has that obligation. What I'm saying is that let's all do our part.
Yes.
So if government has limited resources and they can invest in, say, 2 businesses, they'll go to the businesses that give the best indication that they can deliver.
Yeah.
They won't just come and spend on you because you are Ghanaian. If you are not, demonstrating a desire to push your own products to the world. Okay, so what I'm saying is everybody should do their part. I completely agree. Government should spend government money in Ghana.
Yeah.
Right. But where there is a choice, they will only go where there is
Quality.
yes,
And the right product.
Indeed.
And on that note, Winston, you see the apparel thing. We have over 20 banks in this country, and they are always wearing suits and stuff imported from
Which I don't
Turkey.
understand.
Imagine.
And they are
Imagine.
wearing suits and stuff imported from Turkey and China. Please,
Imagine.
banks, our apparel companies are going to suffer.
Yo.
So let's normalize the made in Ghana thing in the banks from Monday to Fridays. And the truth is, if you go to the banks on Fridays and in the month of March, the staff look really good. in their Ghanaian attire
for 1 month of the year.
And you give them clothing allowance and all that. It's a lot of money in millions. Let's strategically change your fashion sense to accommodate the apparel industry in Ghana.
Let me just make this point. When England, their national team, had their suits from, is it Bahrain also? It was a huge discussion. Not just on the sports channels, but on current affairs programs and everything.
Yeah.
Because they were concerned that England decided to go and get fabrics and have them made in Bahrain.
Yeah.
Because they have denied an English company that money.
Several English companies.
Now, my point is simply this, and before we go for a break, my point is simply this. Look, I do not in God's name understand why in this country called Ghana we think it is all right to wear suit and tie every day.
In this heat.
I don't understand.
It's
You don't even like suit and tie.
I don't like
Because
suit
in
and
the
tie.
suit and tie, you have to switch on the AC. You need more electricity.
Well, I made a decision in February 2024 to no longer wear suits to work, and I've stuck to it
It's a
till
good
now.
decision.
Yeah,
Always
I've
look
stuck
good,
to it
man.
till now. Always wearing African. Yeah,
So I don't understand.
guys.
Beyond the decision not to wear that, it's also important for us that, you see, even the conversation about African or Ghanaian prints, we must prevent people from importing substandard and fake textiles into this country and be selling them as part of the Ghanaian. I don't like when they smuggle things from other countries, particularly from the East and from Asia, into this country and pretend they were made in Ghana. And that's what saddens me, that today we have a lot of our textile companies, they've collapsed. That's it, they are gone. But now we can support Ghanaians who are into it to succeed.
Yeah.
We know that whatever the state touches turns into dust. No problem. Don't go into it.
Yeah.
Lead policies that would help Ghanaians go into it
That's all.
and excel.
Yeah, and
It's
just
as simple as that.
be a customer if you have to. Guys, quickly, do you think we should write things into our constitution now that we are reviewing it that will actually restrict government's spending on certain things to local businesses, no matter what? And if there isn't a local business that has the capacity, government should boost a local business to acquire the capacity to supply whatever it
That's
is.
at any state function. All the spirits, wines, food should be Ghanaian.
Should it be written into the constitution? No, I'm serious, because this is the kind of thing, if you leave to administrative decisions, people would decide as and when based on their own tastes.
Yeah.
But should it be in the because they are reviewing it now. Today they are talking about the economy.
It could be. You see, ordinarily you wouldn't say put this in a constitution. Maybe in an act of parliament or something.
Yeah.
Maybe in a policy. But we can also make demands now. The whole essence of accountability is this. Now, how much have you purchased from Ghanaians? Look, when you hold people accountable, and one of the things, we must do away with this elitist approach of, you were voted into office and that's the end of it. You were not voted into office because you just woke up one day and found yourself into office. You actually told me, in some instances, you begged me to vote you into office. So if I vote you, I've given you a responsibility. You must come back and account to me regularly. Do not think that the moment you get into office, you must lord it over me. No. So we now start asking questions. How much have you bought from the Ghanaian? And see, whenever I ask this question, how many millionaires have we created in Ghana?
Oh, God.
What government policies have led to the creation of millionaires?
You mean how many millionaires have we created from?
You mean billionaires, actually?
Industrialization, local, because millionaires, we've created a lot from
Millionaires,
corruption.
they then chow.
No,
But billionaires.
I don't subscribe to corruption.
No, you just asked how many millionaires have we created. We've created a lot
Contest.
within the corruption industry.
The contest on Ghanaian trade and business. So let's get to the contest.
Oh, dear.
See, I've given you the contest. That's the contest. So we're not talking about
Yes.
corruption. We're talking about we're talking about assisting Ghanaian businesses to thrive. Today, what we have done in Ghana is that when there's a change in government, some businesses will suffer for others to thrive. That must not be the case.
Yep.
All businesses should thrive and do well because governments put in place the best of policies.